On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse Q&A, we talk with former guests Gene and Vanessa about narcissistic abusers and the holiday season. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today, we have Gene. How are you, Gene?
Wonderful, Brandon.
And we have Vanessa. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
And you will know Gene from our July 4th, 2022 episode, and Vanessa was on our November 9th, 2020 episode. So today we are going to discuss the holidays, the holiday season, how difficult it is when you're in a relationship with someone who's an abuser, a narcissistic abuser, abuser in general, co-parenting with them. Obviously, sometimes when you're not in a relationship with them anymore, they just can pop out of the woodwork here or there during the holiday season. And then we're also going to get into the family dynamics of things as well. And I know that's a big issue for everyone all the time, possibly, not just this season. So I guess we're going to start off here. You know, when it comes to current relationships with these people, I guess they just want to cause problems during the season, from starting arguments or breaking up with you just before the major holiday is kind of going on. It's a very controlling behavior. It's a way to ruin your time or make everything always about them. They love to discard you during the season, and they like to set up your expectations during this season only to disappoint you. Again, it's done to kind of ruin everything and control everything during the season. Gift giving is a big thing, and in two ways it is a big thing. One, it's a gift that they can give you to hold over your head, and it's also a way to love bomb you and give you something really extravagant, really expensive. And they can also not get you anything or have it be a very unthoughtful gift, as if they don't care about you at all. So it can really go either way here. And also, when it comes to this season, threats are a big thing, and threats of ruining the holiday, coming into the holiday season. You know, this is a big time for everyone when it comes to your family, your friends and loved ones. So, you know, telling you that they're going to ruin your season, it kind of keeps you in line possibly for the month previous. Something like that. And also, like, they're going to try and ruin it for your kids. So you're on your best behavior to do whatever they are saying, and you're held hostage during this time. So, Gene, with you coming from an abusive relationship, while you were in this type of relationship, what was going on during the seasons for you, and how are you going about, maneuvering during that time? What succeeded and what didn't work? Like, how are you, when you didn't know what you were dealing with, how did they really get you activated and just really destroy your season for you?
Yes. When I was still in the relationship, what would happen a lot is Christmas became a time where he was on stage with my family or his family. And so we would go from kind of a lot more devaluation maybe prior, and then it would be a month of good behavior almost. But it was because we were in front of other people. And so I almost grew to resent it. I remember as I was starting to put things together before, I kind of had a name for what was going on. I remember saying to him, I don't want to go to your family's house for Christmas because I know you're going to be nice to me there. And it makes me sad. And then typically after we come back, I would get the punishment of him having to be on good behavior. So I would get, just a tear down. And so it kind of created I don't know. I feel like it was interesting for me to be able to pick up on that was one of the first things I noticed when I started realizing maybe this is abuse, is that, well, he's only nice to me at Christmas in front of his family or in front of my family, because it was putting on that facade that everything's normal, everything's fine. And I grew to resent the love I would get then, because I knew it wasn't genuine and I knew it was a show and I was a prop. I mean, so it was dealing with the emotions of the facade. And typically, especially at the point where I'm putting stuff together, when I saw the facade come on, I would actually personally, like, my body would be far more scared. My person would be far more scared, because I knew he's being nice, something bad is going to happen. Or I'm going to pay for this later and I have no idea when. So it's not like, okay, I'll pay my tax and I could be done. It was at any time. And so it was just kind of sitting and waiting for it to happen. And, reactive abuse played pretty heavy in my scenario. So there was a lot of, we could be in a room full of people, then he could be doing some of those like abusive things that he knew would get me, that would exist kind of under the veil of consciousness of everyone else. And it would get me activated. And then I would, get upset about something that seemed trivial to him or others, all the while he knew what he was doing, trying to get me worked up so that I would look crazy or stupid or volatile in front of everyone, further legitimizing, that he, oh, look at this poor, nice guy just trying to do all this stuff for this woman. And, she's just crazy, and it really helps cement that narrative.
And eventually you did break up with this person, and now you have to co-parent with them. And when it comes to co-parenting during the season, and I think this will be your second season, so you're a pro of season number 1. So talk about your child in this scenario, the unfairness to a child in this scenario, where you are as like the healthy parent in this scenario. And I guess a big thing for this situation would be to be prepared for anything at any time. So what kind of things were pulled? Is gift giving a really big thing as far as like, what are they kind of trying to show the child during this season? And how do you manage a child's expectations during this time, as well as manage your own feelings and emotions during this time while you're trying to not just protect yourself, but protect a child?
There's a lot that goes into that. And kind of, I guess, what you were mentioning as far as kind of the managing the expectations or being prepared for kind of any array of circumstances, it applies to the parenting level and also to me. So like my goal this year for Christmas is like, try not to be activated. Try, to really get through the season calmly without, PTSD flare-ups and those types of things, in an attempt to restore fun around holidays, like not going into the holidays in fear. And, the same is happening with my son, managing those expectations as well. Because, my son is 6 years old. So this is still like Christmas is magic in these young ages. I guess I really want him to still have those fun holidays. My ex is his current MO, I would say, is instead of being kind of the Disneyland, look at these big extravagant gifts and stuff like that, it's dad's been, really down on his luck and people aren't treating dad. And it's this big sympathy play that's going on. So in the background, what's happening right now is my son is feeling bad for my ex a lot and talking to me about that. And mind you, my ex sees him 4 days a month. And so, there's this whole narrative of like, he doesn't get to just think about himself and fun. He has to think about his poor dad and how his poor dad's being mistreated. One example would be this year. In fact, my son had like a Christmas performance in front of the school. And he came out and sang his little song, and I knew to be prepared for my ex to show up there. Typically, if there's an event, he doesn't go to a lot of stuff, but if there is one, I prepare myself just as a means of managing my expectations and preparing myself mentally for the worst case scenario. And so after my son's performance, my son comes off stage to sit next to me, and out of nowhere, we didn't see him coming, and I was watching my son, And so think about it, he's 6 years old. He just had his first performance like on stage in front of other people. Like how exciting right after he gets off stage, going from the high of that situation to, oh my gosh, I didn't know dad was going to be here. Dad didn't call and tell him. There's no telling if he's going to show up. You're 6. Holy crap, my dad's here. So now dad's interrupted that moment, given him a hug, wanted the credit of, look, I was here, and then left, taking him out of the fun. I got this moment that was about him. There are ways to handle the parenting side of that, obviously, a lot better. Not to say that I wouldn't allow my ex to be there. If he wants to be involved in his son's life, I'm not going to be something that stands in the way of that. And I want my son to be able to inform opinions as long as he stays safe on his own. So it's not my ex shouldn't be there because I don't want my abuser there thing. It's a purely from the child's perspective. That is a lot of emotional interference to be running on a child in that moment. And so it's stealing those moments, stealing those spotlights. And now I'm in a place where I'm not watching it happen for me. I'm watching it happen to my child. It's almost hard to relive watching that, trauma happen to someone else. The water's lukewarm in the frog boiling hot water scenario, and it's lukewarm and you're seeing the lukewarmness where you couldn't before. So kind of watching it play out long.
So for your holiday season, will your child be spending the time with you?
So we will be doing a split 50-50. And that's one other thing I wanted to mention is that usually around the holidays is the only time that my ex gets long-term exposure to my son. And so this year he has him for 9 days straight. And they are going to be flying to another state to go see my in-laws. And my son hasn't seen my in-laws in almost 2 years, or my ex-in-laws. They all cut me off. I know nothing about going on that side of the family, but I'm thinking this kid's day-to-day is not with him and with these people. And he's about to go with them for 9 days. There's nothing I can do about it. And typically, once he gets back, as I'm sure tons of people in this situation know, he's so emotionally dysregulated. He's disrupted. My son's in therapy too and has been working on a lot of stuff and proud with the progress he's made. And even after this last Thanksgiving, he had a 9-day stint with him. And my son came back a different person. And it took almost a week of unwinding and really working the tools he's learned in therapy. So yeah, there's that to, prep for, I guess, look forward to too. There's nothing, you're paying extra taxes every time in one of these scenarios.
And during the time when you don't have your child, how are you going to be, I guess, an active parent as far as being ready for anything that might happen, phone calls, etc.? And how will you occupy your time during that time so you don't go kind of crazy thinking what the heck is going on? Because it is a nerve-wracking thing, giving your child to someone who's not active in their life. You have no idea what is going to kind of happen there, and who you're dealing with. So how do you protect yourself during that time while you have a lot of downtime?
So I will say for my specific scenario, as far as I will schedule 2 calls with him during those 9 days with my son. And I will have 2 preset times where I call him. I don't like to call and talk to him every day when he's with his dad, because I feel like that takes him out of his cognitive space and has to make him reconfront kind of this pressure cooker of what mom and dad were, or what he experienced of us together. And then the mindset that I adopt, it's cognitive dissonance. I mean, it's straight up. I honestly cannot allow thoughts in my head about my son during that time, because it's honestly too much to handle if I were to kind of hold those truths. And so I don't know if this is, a terrible thought process, but I didn't legally agree with the ruling on the custody. And so my brain has decided to take what it can. It's not my place to be. I just don't have rights to that. So my brain, cognitive dissonance, just shuts it down. But I have noticed that with that strategy, the last time my son came back from my ex's, I had done the brain shutdown, and the kid comes back in, and I had not gotten myself mentally prepared for the fact that, oh yeah, he comes back different. and it was rough. So this time I will, the day before, start trying to get my brain and head around the extra patience that it's going to require from me for the following week in parenting, because it requires so much extra patience and extra love. And, typically when they come back from, the abuser, they are also exhibiting like abuse characteristics, ones that are particularly triggering to me, because it's from your abuser. So they're very tailored to your PTSD. And so it's just getting my head right, my expectations right, and really pre-planning what that's going to look like, I think is kind of where I will shift this time.
And a couple other things for people who are dealing with this during the season when it comes to co-parenting: keep things in writing communication or texting communication and on the apps that you're using. And also, surround yourself with a support system as much as you can. If something kind of goes awry, or you just need to talk to anyone being around, especially during this season, because it is a lonely time of the season, especially if you might not have your child on Christmas like you normally would, or anytime during the holidays that you normally would. So figuring out like a support system, any groups. So, relationships are one thing, co-parenting is another thing. And then we have the family issues. And with family, it comes with a million things. And the thought processes in your head is like, should I go? Should I invite my family over to my place? Holidays bring up food issues, weight issues. You're being analyzed of what's on your plate, how you look, nitpicking about your job, your choices in life, relationships or lack thereof. There's yelling that could be going on, put downs that could be going on. Sarcasm is quite a thing during the holiday season amongst family members. There's outbursts, there's walking on eggshells. A lot of people in the family have addicts as members of their families. And when those people have had too much to drink, who knows what will happen. There can be gift-giving issues, helping around the actual dinner, where someone might say, hey, I don't need help, and then later on reverse everything that they said. You have tons of guilt during this time of the season. Passive aggressiveness, unwanted people at the table can be a really big issue, because families still might be involved with other family members who might have abused you, possibly sexually, when you were younger, and those families still allow those people at the table, which might, I'm sure it's a lot of people listening that has happened to. And then it just comes to, things along the lines of like your lifestyle, your views, your competence, patronizing behavior. And then, how long are you staying at the dinner? There's so many things at dinner, or maybe a weekend or a whole week, who knows? So there's so many things that can go into the landmine of family things that are going on during the holiday season, whether it be beforehand and planning or during the actual events that are going on, and then the aftermath as well. So, Vanessa, you've been dealing with your family your whole entire life, and you are someone who has gone from having not a lot of boundaries around these situations like 2 years ago to now being pretty darn good with your boundaries. So when it comes to where you were and now what you're dealing with, what were the, central points around your family? How did it run during the season? And how would you say your boundaries have improved, and what have you noticed about that, especially your confidence going into this season over previous seasons?
I used to feel kind of like I was at the mercy of whatever my dad wanted us to do. He's very impulsive. For example, this is where I have a new boundary. But my dad had called Christmas Eve morning, and I have 3 little kids at home. And he asked me what he should get my mom for Christmas, and I thought he was joking, so I left. And then a kid got hurt, so I said, hey, I got to go. And I went and helped my kid. And my mom texted me You better call your dad or Christmas is going to be ruined. I saw that text and my whole countenance, like my whole body felt like a house landed on me and everything was up to me. So I called him and like smooth it over, and he was not joking. He had not gone Christmas shopping for my mom. And he wanted me to come to town and go buy her a gift. And mind you, like I have my 3 kids, they're all little, and myself has, like my body doesn't feel good. And I try to plan things ahead of time. I have lists and I try to like just have everything planned. And I think it's in response to growing up with so much impulsiveness. Like, okay, now we're doing this. And like just in that little example I showed you, it feels like there's so much riding on my response. So in that moment, I was like, hey, my kid's hurt. You could hear him crying in the background. Like that's a very natural mom thing to do. Kids hurt, hang up phone, go help them. And so that experience really showed me how I couldn't trust my own instincts. It's like, oh, that made my dad mad. I shouldn't do that next time. So then I would make more plans like, okay, next time, calmly say, I'm sorry, Father, my child is hurt. Is now an okay time for me to let you go? So I tell you that example because it was really impactful to me, and it made me realize how tied I am to his mood and how on eggshells I feel all the time. Like my mom literally said, Christmas is going to be ruined because of how your dad feels after he talked to you. And I think that was 5 years ago. And he asks me, like the next few Christmases, he asked me to buy my mom a gift. And we're talking like Christmas Eve. So then the next year I planned, okay, like I'm trying to make all these plans, like how can I plan for his impulsiveness? And the best thing I came up with, I'm going to ask him in the beginning of December, what can I get my mom? Because I know you're going to ask me. But last year and this year, I made my boundary. I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy my mom a Christmas gift for him. And it feels terrible. But the first year I decided to do that, she had no gift to open. Like he is dead set. Like I told Vanessa to do it. She didn't get a gift for you. So she got no gift. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like this is your wife of 46 years. Christmas is not a surprise. Like it comes the same time every year. It's not like, oh my goodness, this just happened. And so like that is a boundary. I'm like the randomness and impulsiveness of him. Like I say the randomness because I don't know if he's going to call me Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the day before, like it really, like, I feel like I'm just waiting for him to show up and say, this is what you need to do. And if you don't, Christmas is ruined. And it's an easy line to sell because my mom will say, well, Vanessa upset her dad. And my husband will be like, well, you should have just done this. And my kids will be like, what happened, Mom? Now Christmas is ruined. We can't go see Grandpa. So it feels, I like how you said hostage. It feels like you're a hostage, like everything is riding on me playing that good girl role.
Hi, everyone. I just binged a podcast called Nobody Should Believe Me, and it was amazing. And it offers an unprecedented look at Munchausen by proxy, and I think you'll find a lot of similarities within what we share in our show with Nobody Should Believe Me. And the host is Andrea Dunlop, and she served on a committee with top experts in the country. And this podcast goes into the depth and breadth of this topic like no one has before. And personally, I found this podcast to be riveting. It's educational, the pathology of everything on there. My brain was just buzzing. I got goosebumps a lot. And I've heard a lot of stories, but this one goes into depth in a way that I haven't heard before. And Andrea really does a fantastic job. It's just a very well done podcast. So binge all 8 episodes of Nobody Should Believe Me Season 1 wherever you listen to podcasts today. So as far as when you are at the actual Christmas event, during the holiday season, if you're staying with your family at that time, if you're just going for one night. I guess, what have your strategies been as far as your self-care while you're at the event itself? Do you have specific strategies that you use?
Yes, I do. And it might sound silly, but there's these two strategies I follow that I learned from Dr. Ramani. I watch her on YouTube, and she does a deep technique. So I will write it on my hand.
And DEEP stands for don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, and don't personalize.
I write it on my hand, but I repeat them over and over. Like, I don't have to defend my decisions. I don't have to say, why didn't you do this year? And the other thing, this is the one that sounds silly, but when I am in his presence, or I'm talking to him on the phone, to me, it's the same thing, phone or in person, my whole body is like tense. Like, okay, I just saw him 2 days ago and my stomach is in knots. It hurts. It feels like I've been tensing up. Like I'm just tense the whole time. My whole stomach hurts. But in my head, I'm like, that's the silly thing. But it's like, I love you, Vanessa. I love you, Vanessa. I love you, Vanessa. It's okay. It's like I'm pretending to be my own little mom on my shoulder. Like, I love you. I love you. I love you. And it sounds silly, but it has helped me, like, my nervous system to be like more calm. So I haven't seen that strategy in a book anywhere, but I guess those are things I've always wanted to hear, probably as a kid. And so it helps soothe me now.
And when it comes to, I guess, the scapegoat of the family who might be getting a lot of nitpicking, I haven't experienced this as it being done to me because I was not the scapegoat of a family, but there's a lot of just, the put downs and the nitpicking, the eye rolls, all of those things. And I've been witness to the eruptions and the responses. And I know why the responses happen. I can see them. I understand them. And then bickering ensues, because the other person the trigger has been hit. They are engaging. And for better or worse, it started to happen. So in, I guess, both of your experience, like, how do you feel about the role of the other members of the family when the scapegoat does get involved or gets triggered and the ensuing stuff happens?
Like in my family, it feels like you do whatever you can to not get attention. I feel like we're all available to be picked on, nitpicked. But I do think there's certain siblings that tend to get it really bad. I would like to be a fighter, but I am not. My whole body freezes like, please make this go away. Please make this go away. And I notice all of us siblings, it's like if one of us stands out, it's like we're telling the other one, like, shut up, quit talking. Like, do not fight back. Your best move is to like blend in, pretend it didn't happen. And it's like we're actively telling each other to like calm down. It's like we're creating this whole enabling system where we're like, don't stand up to him. It'll make him worse. It'll make the whole holidays a disaster. Who knows?
And Jean, do you have any experience in this?
Maybe not in my like primary family, like my, parents and my brothers. I wouldn't say that was there, but in those scenarios, because I've been in many of them and work and, my ex's family and different things like that, I was able to, it's like being in like maybe the Hunger Games or the Squid Games. It's like, dude, once we're all in the arena, okay, everyone man for themselves. No one can hold anybody accountable for what the fuck, what just happened in there. We'll talk about it outside. And I've had it where, let's say there's some people that see it for what it is and some people that have no clue. what's transpiring and really kind of doesn't see beyond the veil of it. In those scenarios, I was a fighter. Like, I was the easiest reactive abuse in the world, right? Like, you could trigger me quick and I would go off. And I don't know, it was interesting hearing somebody say, oh, I wish I could do that, or I would want to be that, because I'm like, I don't know, dude, it didn't seem like a good method for me. So, I don't know. It's kind of, but I think the only way to stand up to it and fight it effectively, if I were to comment on that, would be if everyone's in unison. Because if there's any division, they're going to win every time, and it's wasted effort and it's wasted energy. So if someone's going to take the fighting route, it's kind of got to be a concerted effort, or else it is, in my opinion, a bit of a waste.
So I guess the one thing that we haven't mentioned here is the hoovering that happens during the season for people. And that can happen in a relationship, and that can happen during the family season as well, as far as like the moms and the dads and the exes who reach out to you during this time, trying to really play on the sympathy and the nostalgia of the season, how you grew up, all of the good times. It's a really big problem. And guilt kind of can suck you back into the families and all these things when you've gone no contact with all of these people. So have any of you, guilt is a big part of the season. So I guess, how do you deal with guilt, even if someone is reaching out during this time? And then as well as, even if someone isn't reaching out during this time, do you have like guilt feelings that kind of pop up here and there?
I personally, yes, like guilt is like what the game, right? Like that's the constant struggle. And I've almost had to take just kind of like, I've been doing intense therapy over the last year, but just like this hard line policy to where like, I just have to make rules to myself, almost to kind of mitigate that guilt, like a computer, like an on and off switch. If you're programming like a yes or no, because if my brain gets to spend too much time in emotional decision making, it can really wreck all parts of me, like physically, mentally, emotionally. And I know that I hope one day that'll be something that, like, a function I can restore to my person. But right now it has to be a yes or no, because it is such a constant battle. And that's, I guess, how I deal with it.
And no, what's interesting is my dad has told me my entire life how mean I am and the bad child. That was the worst one. And what I realized is it worked, because when he says I'm mean, like, let's say I say no to something. No, we're not going to go to this event. And he says, it's just because you're a meanie. It worked every time, because I'd be like, well, okay, let me see, let me adjust. We can do this. Because I did not want to be a mean person. Like, to me, that was like terrible. I don't want to be mean. And so as far as the guilt now that I like can see it for what it is, I'm realizing that I'm not a mean person. He just realized that worked, right? He might have said other words that I ignored, right? If he said, you swear all the time, I'd be like, well, I don't. So that doesn't get to me, but if he says I'm mean, I could totally see it, because my whole body is screaming, I don't want to be by you. So if he says I'm mean, I'm like, you're right. If you know what's in my head, you'd never talk to me again. And so it worked for me every time. And so now when you say like, how am I dealing with it? I am saying, yes, I feel guilty, but I'm saying like, it's on him to do his work. I cannot turn myself into a pretzel trying to make him happy, because it won't work. And this is a follow-up to a question you'd asked earlier about like boundaries. So like this year, the first year of my entire 46 years of Earth, I'm not spending Christmas Eve with them, my family of origin. And It's scaring me. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling excited because I'm like, just to be with like my little family, like makes me excited and breathe an air of relief. Like, oh, this evening will be okay. But I'm also scared. Like a chicken, I told my mom, I'm like, so mom, we are not going to come up on Christmas Eve. We'll be there Christmas Day. And so I guess I'm waiting to see what his reaction will be. But as far as guilt, he'll be like, well, we would spend every Christmas with my parents. Like I'm like, Dad, we lived half a mile from them. Like, it's different. And yeah, so I guess that's how I'm trying to combat the guilt is like, my body is screaming inside me, even at phone calls, like a voice that can't hit me. Like, I'm still afraid of it. Like, I am telling my body, like, my body is scared of him. And that says something. That means limit my time. And so it's helping me not feel guilty. Because on the flip side, when I react to that guilt and I feel terrible, then it's like, I'm mad at my husband, I'm mad at my kids, and they're super annoying. And then I'm like, wait a minute, we're all screaming at each other because we can't scream at him. You know what I mean? It's like, when I look outside, it's like, no, wait a minute. A calm Vanessa is good for everybody.
I just wish everyone out there, I really, if you're struggling with your family and feel like you're at a place where you don't have hope with them at all, go listen to Vanessa's story and then come and listen to her talk right now. And you will hear two different people and you will be really inspired about the change in your own life and making those changes in your life, because you are a completely different person in how you do things with your boundaries and everything from when you first recorded. So I really encourage everyone to go listen to your episode. And, some of the things that you kind of mentioned in there is like, you're allowed to say no. You are mindful of kind of what is going on inside of you, like triggers that are going to be there. Things that we've done before, or even talking today. I know that we've discussed like planning stuff out, what our responses are going to be before we even get there, being prepared with all of your canned answers. Oh, I'm going to say this and someone's going to say that. I have a rebuttal for that. But also at the table, sometimes the less you say is sometimes better. The less you give up, the better. You might be leading to everyone the most boring life known to humankind, but that is, the best thing for the dinner, because sometimes you're going to jump right into the fire and you're going to go. And then maybe later on down the road, you'll be like, you know what? I don't have to go to this dinner anymore. And you'll deal with the circumstances of, not going to that dinner, as Vanessa, came to her own decision and the different types of feelings that are going on there. And also when you're at these things, look for situations where there could be signs of escalation that are going on. Try not to get involved into those escalation issues. You don't always have to be in the same room. You can, try and walk around. Going to the bathroom a lot might be your best friend. Bring your phone with you. Read the news while you're in there. Try and figure out kind of maneuvering tactics throughout the night. Sometimes you don't want to be talking to a certain person in the family that you're talking to. It could be bad news. And then always think of like exit strategies. If you are not having a good time, if everything is really too much for you to handle beforehand, think of the types of exit strategies that you want. Give yourself an out when you need it during the evening if you really need to leave the situation.
I just wanted to add a couple more tactics that I
go
have.
for it.
So ahead of time, I will arrange who's going to sit by me. like, like this secret, like, hey, make sure you sit by me at the table. My dad, narcissist, wants to sit by me all the time. Like wherever I'm at, if I'm at this chair, he wants to sit next to me. If we're on the couch, he wants to sit next to me. And so I arrange, okay, this child, hey, make sure you sit by me at the table. Hey, make sure you sit over here. And then I will make sure I have someone by me all the time. If someone who's with me moves rooms, I need to move as well. So I try to not let myself be alone with that person.
And I would just add that, like, set your expectations, because a lot of times I would be the one that would crush myself because I would go in with the belief that things were going to be far different than they were. So if I set my expectations correctly and I know kind of what that person is capable of, or, just what general probability has told me I should expect when I go into this situation, it can be less activating.
So I really want to thank both of you for being here with me today, for sharing your knowledge, your experience with myself and everyone who is listening. You both are going to help so many people. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode, learned a little bit of how to deal with the situations that you're going to be in this holiday season, and, got validated by Jean and Vanessa here today. So really big thank you to both of you. And if you want to be a guest on our show, like Jean and Vanessa were, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. When you click on that button, it takes you to our guest form page. Please do read all of the instructions and either fill out our guest form and press the submit button, or send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com. And please do read all of our instructions and send us an email or fill out our guest form in the format that we ask for. Also at our website, we have our support group. At the top of the page, there's a button that says support group. When you click on that, it takes you to our very own safe social network. There, you'll find that we have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night, every Thursday afternoon, and every Saturday night. We also have forum boards for you to post on, for you to get validated, for you to get support from fellow survivors like yourself. We also have on there ad-free episodes and episodes that never made it to air. And if you need even more support, besides the support you'll get from our very own support group at narcissistapocalypse.com, you can go to domesticshelters.org, and there you'll find articles and resources that can help you make sense of what you've been dealing with. On there, they have every phone number, every website address, every email address for shelters and domestic violence agencies. Doesn't matter how big or small your town is. All of that information is there. Domesticshelters.org is a wonderful organization. So please do go visit them today. And that is it for today's episode. We hope you have a very safe holiday season. And from myself, Jean, and Vanessa, we hope you have a good night.